Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on how companies in the agricultural world report their energy use. Now, I know that might sound a little technical, but trust me, it's one of the best ways to see which companies are really serious about building a sustainable future. Let's dive in. Have you ever really thought about all the steps your food takes before it even gets to you? Forget the farm for a second. The processing, the milling, the packaging, all of that stuff requires a ton of energy. But how much are we really talking about? And, where's that energy even coming from? And that question, well, it gets right to the heart of a massive challenge for the whole agricultural industry. A company's energy habits have these huge real-world consequences. We're talking about everything from their bottom line to their impact on the planet. To put it bluntly, processing all those agricultural goods is one of the most energy-hungry parts of our entire food supply chain. I mean, think about it. Massive amounts of electricity, steam, and fuel. And because the consumption is so high, it becomes absolutely crucial to measure and manage it properly.
So you've got these two sides of the same coin, right? On the one hand, from a business perspective, if you're hooked on fossil fuels, you're at the mercy of wild price swings. On the other hand, you've got the environmental cost, which contributes directly to climate change. So you see, managing energy smartly isn't just a green issue, it's a core business strategy.
Okay, so if you want to fix a problem, you have to measure it first. That makes sense. But how can anyone, investors, consumers, you name it, compare what company A is doing versus company B if they're all measuring things differently? It's like comparing apples and oranges. What we need is a common language. And that is where the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, or SASB, steps in. Just think of it like a rulebook. It gives companies a clear, consistent way to report on things like energy use. This way, everyone, from big-time investors to regular people like us, can get a straight answer on how a company is actually performing.
So what does this rulebook actually ask for? Well, for agricultural products, the SASB standard boils everything down to three key numbers, three metrics that give us a really clear snapshot of a company's energy profile. And here they are. These three numbers tell a powerful story. First, just how much energy is the company using in total? Second, how much of that is it just pulling from the public grid? And third, what slice of that energy pie comes from clean, renewable sources? All right, first up is total operational energy. Think of this as the big one, the grand total of every bit of energy a company uses in its buildings and factories. That includes what it buys and any power it generates itself. The one little thing to remember is that this number doesn't include fuel for their trucks or vehicles. It's purely about their operations. The second metric, percentage grid electricity, is pretty much what it sounds like. It tells us how much a company leans on the public power grid versus making its own power on site. And that's an important detail, for understanding things like risk and reliability. And finally, we've got percentage renewable. Honestly, this is the metric that gets the most attention when we're talking about climate impact. It shows us exactly what share of their energy comes from sources like solar, wind, and hydro. It's a direct scorecard of their transition away from fossil fuels. Okay, enough with the theory. How do we actually crunch these numbers? Let's get our hands dirty and walk through a really simple example together. This is where you can see how practical this standard really is. So let's just pretend we're analysts looking at a fictional company's report. They tell us that over the last year, they used 15,000 gigajoules of electricity from the grid, they burned 10,000 gigajoules of natural gas, and hey, not bad, they generated 2,000 gigajoules from their very own solar panels. Step one is to get that total energy number. And good news, it's just simple addition. You just add up the energy they used from all those different sources. So we add them up, 15,000 plus 10,000 plus 2,000, and bam, we get our first metric. This company's total operational energy consumed is 27,000 gigajoules. See, easy enough? Now for our second metric. What percentage of that energy came from the grid? The formula here is simple. You just divide the electricity they bought from the grid by the total energy we just calculated. Then multiply by 100 to get a percentage. Let's just plug our numbers right into that formula. So that's 15,000 divided by our total of 27,000 times 100. And that gives us 55.6%. So a little over half of this company's power comes straight from the electrical grid. Okay, the picture is starting to get clearer now. All right, last one. Let's figure out their renewable percentage. And the logic is exactly the same. We take their total renewable energy, which in this case is that 2,000 gigajoules from solar, and divide it by the total energy consumed. So that's going to be 2,000 divided by 27,000, and then, of course, multiply by 100.
Which gives us our final answer, 7.4%. So yeah, while our made-up company is using some renewable energy, it's still a pretty small fraction of their total use. Okay, so we did the math. We've got our three numbers. But what's the so what, right? I mean, what do these figures actually tell us about this company, its strategy, and where it's headed? This quote absolutely nails it. A company with a higher renewable number is just less exposed. It's less vulnerable to crazy spikes in fuel prices, and it's less at risk from new climate regulations that are almost certainly coming. That 7.4% we calculated, it's not just a number. It's a signal of risk, but also a huge opportunity to improve.
So I'll leave you with this to think about. Now that you know how this works, if you saw a company with a low renewable energy number, what would be the very first question you'd ask its CEO? Because their answer, well, that could tell you everything you really need to know about their plan for the future. Thanks for tuning in.